The day Vanessa Reeves pulled her battered Subaru into the cracked parking lot of Johnson's Auto Repair with an $800 check and a toolbox full of determination, every mechanic in Pinewood Harbor snickered behind their grease-stained hands. In Fee, a blue-collar town where automotive legacies passed from father to son for generations and respect was earned through decades of proven mechanical know-how, this former office manager with her online certification clearly didn't understand the unforgiving nature of the business she was buying. What these lifetime gearheads couldn't possibly know was that their biggest mistake wasn't doubting her mechanical abilities. It would be underestimating what she was about to discover beneath their very feet. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The weathered storefronts of Pinewood Harbor's industrial district stretched along the coastal road like forgotten sentinels, their faded signs and salt-corroded fixtures telling stories of more prosperous times. Once a thriving shipping hub, the small New England town had struggled since the naval base downsizing 20 years ago, leaving behind a community of skilled workers with dwindling opportunities. Among the businesses still hanging on was a cluster of auto repair shops, their bays echoing with the sounds of impact wrenches and air compressors from dawn till dusk. The monthly meeting of the Pinewood Harbor Chamber of Commerce was in full swing at the Harbor View Diner. Coffee mugs clinked against worn formica tables, while plates of Rachel's famous blueberry pie made rounds among the gathered business owners. Men in work shirts with embroidered name patches sat alongside women in practical blazers, all discussing the same concerns they'd been facing for years: decreasing population, increasing costs, and the looming shadow of the Eastbrook Mall development, threatening to siphon away what little business remained. Victor Menendez, whose family had operated Menendez Automotive for 3 generations, held court in the corner booth. At 58, his powerful forearms and permanently oil-stained fingernails spoke of a lifetime spent underneath chassis and hoods. The Menendez name was synonymous with reliability in Pinewood Harbor, their red and black sign a fixture on Harbor Street since 1962. "Johnson finally gave up the ghost on that place of his," Victor remarked to the small group gathered around his booth. "Closed the doors last week after limping along for 3 years?" "About time," nodded Eleanor Fitzgerald, who ran the local parts supply store that her grandfather had opened after returning from World War II. Her family had been providing parts to Pinewood Harbor's mechanics for 70 years. That building's been falling apart since the roof damage in the 17 storm. Johnson never recovered after his heart attack, poor man. "Who's going to want that money pit?" asked Frank Doherty, whose towing service had been retrieving broken-down vehicles from the coastal highway since the 1970s. "Place needs a complete overhaul. New lifts, new diagnostics, new roof. You're looking at 6 figures minimum before you could turn a wrench in there." Before Victor could respond, Raymond Chen, who owned the newly opened hybrid vehicle specialty shop on the edge of town, joined the conversation. "Someone already bought it," he said, lowering his voice slightly. "Came in yesterday looking for OBD scanners and asking about wholesale parts accounts. Some woman who's never owned a shop before." A ripple of disbelief spread through the group. Johnson's Auto Repair had been struggling for years, its outdated equipment and deteriorating building making it increasingly difficult to handle modern vehicles. The county inspector had cited the property 3 times in the past year alone for various violations, and rumors about asbestos in the back office had further diminished its already questionable value. "A woman?" Victor's wife Maria raised an eyebrow as she slid into the booth beside him. Maria handled the books for Menendez Automotive and knew better than most how thin the margins had become in the repair business. What's she planning to do with it? General repair shop, apparently, Raymond replied, stirring his coffee. Said something about affordable diagnostics and transparent pricing. Had some online certification from a virtual mechanics program. Kept talking about demystifying auto repair. Frank Doherty gave a derisive snort. Demystifying? You mean undercutting? Bet she'll be offering $19.99 oil changes to steel customers and then upselling unnecessary repairs like those chain places. That's if she can even get the place operational, Eleanor added. Johnson's equipment was ancient. That hydraulic lift hasn't been inspected in years, and the electrical system was a fire waiting to happen. Did you see what she paid for it? Asked Maria, always practical about financial matters. Johnson was asking $30,000 last I heard, which was already a steal considering the real estate. Alone. $800, Raymond said, his expression clearly communicating his disbelief. Johnson practically gave it away. His kids just wanted to be done with his debts and move on. 800? Victor repeated, nearly choking on his coffee. The diagnostic computer alone is worth more than that, even if it is 10 years. Outdated. She's got a kid with her too, Raymond continued. Teenage daughter who looked thoroughly embarrassed to be there, no husband in sight. Victor shook his head. That place needs at least $150,000 in equipment investment just to handle basic repairs on newer models. The scanning systems alone, for European models, would eat up $20,000. The shop management software, another $5,000. Not to mention the lift certifications, environmental compliance for the waste oil, updating the air compressor system. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I give her till the first inspection, Maria declared, with the confidence of someone who had seen many businesses come and go over the years. Remember that guy from Boston who tried to open that specialty exhaust shop back in 18? Lasted 6 weeks before the EPA violations shut him down. The conversation might have continued. In this vein, had the diner's bell not chimed, signaling a new arrival. The door swung open, admitting a gust of briny harbor air, and the last person any of them expected to see at a gathering of established Pinewood Harbor business owners. Vanessa Reeves stood in the doorway, scanning the room with determined hazel eyes. At 36, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had weathered difficult times before. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and while her clothes were clearly new, dark work pants, a button-up shirt with a subtle plaid pattern, and steel-toed boots that hadn't yet acquired the characteristic scuffs of daily wear, there was nothing pretentious about her appearance. Beside her stood a teenager, around 15, with her mother's heart-shaped face and determined chin, but with vibrant blue hair that made her stand out in the conservative town. The girl clutched a tablet computer, her expression hovering between supportive and mortified at being dragged to this gathering of adults. The pair paused momentarily, taking in the room full of strangers who had suddenly gone quiet at their entrance. Victor and Maria exchanged glances. Eleanor Fitzgerald cleared her throat. Raymond Chen studied his coffee cup with sudden interest. Vanessa took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked directly toward the group of business owners who had just been discussing her imminent failure. The teenager followed reluctantly, a half-step behind. "Good evening," Vanessa said. As she approached, her voice carrying a hint of a Midwestern accent, but projecting a confidence that belied her newcomer status. "I'm Vanessa Reeves, the new owner of what used to be Johnson's Auto Repair." She extended her hand to Victor, who seemed to be the center of the group. "And you are?" Victor hesitated only briefly before shaking her hand. His calloused palm dwarfed her smaller one, but her grip was firm and steady. "Victor Menendez. My shop's about a half-mile east of yours on Harbor Street." Menendez Automotive, Vanessa nodded. The diesel specialists. I saw your 5-ton truck lift yesterday. Impressive setup. Something flickered in Victor's expression, perhaps surprise that she had already been observing neighboring businesses, or that she correctly identified his specialty. This is my wife, Maria, he said, gesturing to the woman beside him. She keeps our books. Pleasure to meet you, Maria said, her tone professional but cool. Her eyes traveled to the teenager, standing slightly behind Vanessa. And this is your daughter? This is Zoe, Vanessa said, resting a hand lightly on the girl's shoulder. She's my assistant manager for the digital side of things. Zoe, these are the Menendezes. They run one of the established shops in town. Zoe stepped forward, with surprising poise despite her obvious discomfort. Nice to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Menendez. Do you use Auto Shop Manager Pro for your service scheduling, or are you still on the Mitchell system? Mom's trying to decide which platform to implement. The unexpected technical question from a blue-haired teenager momentarily silenced the group. It was Eleanor Fitzgerald who recovered first, her expression a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Young lady, running an auto shop involves a lot more than picking software, she said. That Johnson place hasn't passed inspection in years. Your mother's bought herself quite the project. Rather than appearing embarrassed, Zoe tapped something on her tablet. We know the building failed the last safety inspection due to electrical code violations in the office area and insufficient ventilation in the paint storage room. But the structural engineer we consulted said the foundation and main building are sound. She looked up from her device. Most of the issues are cosmetic or involve outdated systems that we're planning to upgrade anyway. Eleanor's mouth opened and closed without producing words. Raymond Chen leaned forward with increased interest. I'm Raymond Chen, he said, extending his hand to Vanessa. Chen Hybrid Specialists on the North End, opened 2 years ago. Of course, Vanessa nodded. You've got the level 3 charging station. Smart investment with the way the market's moving. You know something about electric vehicles? Raymond asked, his eyebrows rising slightly. I know something about market trends, Vanessa replied. I spent the last 10 years managing operations for a medical equipment company. The EV transition is following a similar adoption curve to what we saw with digital imaging systems in healthcare. Early resistance, followed by rapid mainstream acceptance once the infrastructure catches up. Something in her tone, the precise, technical assessment without pretension, seemed to catch Raymond off guard. Been in the industry for 15 years, he said, a hint of pride breaking through his initial skepticism. Started with traditional mechanics, made the transition to hybrids, then full electric. That kind of adaptability is crucial now. That kind of knowledge is invaluable, Vanessa agreed. I hope you won't mind if I ask for advice occasionally. The EV space is evolving quickly, and I want to make sure we're equipped to handle basics, at least for the models common in this area. Before Raymond could respond, Frank Doherty interjected, We heard you paid $800 for the whole operation. Quite a bargain for someone with no experience in the business. The question was pointed, almost challenging, but Vanessa didn't flinch. Mr. Johnson's children were more interested in resolving the situation quickly than maximizing profit, she replied. And yes, the price reflected the condition of the property and the outstanding violations that need to be addressed. That's a far cry from being ready to actually service vehicles, Victor observed, though his tone had lost some of its earlier dismissiveness. You're absolutely right, Vanessa acknowledged with a frankness that seemed to surprise them, which is why I've spent the last 8 months taking certification courses and working under Master Mechanic Dale Harmon in Columbus. I'm not claiming to have the decades of experience everyone in this room has, but I'm not coming into this completely blind. May I ask why? Maria inquired, genuine curiosity breaking through her reserve. Why leave whatever career you had to take on a failing auto shop in a town where you don't know anyone? Vanessa glanced at her daughter before answering. When Pinewood Medical Equipment was acquired by a national chain last year, my position was eliminated in the consolidation. At first, it seemed like a disaster, but then I started thinking about what I really wanted for myself and Zoe. She looked around at the community of business owners who had gathered for generations. My father was a mechanic in Ohio. I grew up in his shop, learning the basics alongside my homework. When he passed away 10 years ago, his shop was sold to a chain that doubled the prices and halved the quality. I always regretted not having the skills or confidence to keep it going. There was a sincerity in her words that was difficult to dismiss, a genuine connection to the work that transcended business calculations. Zoe and I have been living in apartments her whole life. I wanted her to have roots somewhere, to understand what it means to build something real and be part of a community. When I saw the listing for Johnson's shop at that price, it felt like a second chance. Noble sentiments, Frank said, his voice still skeptical. But auto repair isn't a hobby or a lifestyle choice for most of us. It's our livelihood, and it's harder than most outsiders can imagine. The diagnostics alone on newer models require constant updating and training. I don't doubt that for a moment, Vanessa replied, meeting his gaze directly. And I'm not approaching this as a hobby. I've invested everything I have into making this work. I've developed a 3-year business plan focusing on transparency, fair pricing, and gradual equipment upgrades that should make the operation financially viable. She reached into her shoulder bag and pulled out a folder. In fact, that's partly why I came tonight. I was hoping to introduce myself to the business community and also to find out if anyone might be willing to share resources occasionally until I can afford to purchase everything I need. The Johnson equipment is functional but limited. Victor and Eleanor exchanged glances. Equipment sharing wasn't uncommon among mechanical businesses with established relationships, but usually only between those with proven reliability and family connections. What exactly are you planning to focus on? Victor asked, his tone more businesslike now. We're starting with basic maintenance services, oil changes, brake work, and diagnostic troubleshooting, Vanessa explained. Areas where the barrier to entry is lower, while I continue to expand my certifications. I'm partnering with a mobile mechanic service for more complex repairs until I'm fully equipped, both in tools and expertise. Her answer revealed more thought and planning than any of them had expected. Even Frank seemed slightly less dismissive. Zoe, who had been quiet during most of the exchange, added, "We're also setting up a digital customer portal so people can see their vehicle's maintenance history, upcoming service needs, and real-time repair status. Most shops in a 50-mile radius don't offer that level of transparency." "Well, Ms. Reeves," Victor said after a thoughtful pause, "I've got a pre-2010 OBD scanner that we upgraded from last year. Still works fine for older models. You're welcome to borrow it until you get your diagnostic equipment sorted out." It wasn't an effusive welcome, but it was a practical gesture, of the kind mechanics understood, a willingness to help a neighbor, even one they weren't convinced would succeed. "Thank you, Mr. Menendez," Vanessa said, recognizing the significance of the offer. "I appreciate that more than I can say." "Call me Victor," he replied with a nod. "Everyone does." Maria, watching the exchange, seemed to come to a decision. "Have you folks eaten yet? Rachel makes a mean blueberry pie, and you should meet the rest of the business community if you're going to be staying." The qualification, "if you're going to be staying," revealed that Maria, like the others, still had her doubts. But the invitation itself was a small opening, a crack in the wall of skepticism. "We'd like that," Vanessa said with a genuine smile. "Wouldn't we, Zoe?" Zoe nodded, though her enthusiasm seemed tempered by teenage restraint. The prospect of food and potentially finding allies in this new town clearly appealed to her despite her earlier reluctance. As Maria led them toward an empty table, the group of business owners watched with mixed expressions. None of them believed that Vanessa Reeves would still be in business when the winter tourist season ended. Her plans sounded good in theory, but they had all seen the harsh realities of the repair business destroy better-prepared operations than hers. Yet something about her direct manner and evident preparation left them feeling slightly less certain of her failure than they had been before meeting her. She was clearly no dilettante playing at being a mechanic. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. 500 says she's gone by Christmas, Frank Doherty murmured to Raymond as they watched Vanessa introduce herself to the hardware store owner. Raymond considered this, watching as Vanessa listened intently to Rachel, describing the diner's delivery vehicle problems, her notepad now in her hand rather than her daughter's. "I don't know," Raymond said slowly. "There's something about her. I'm not saying she'll make it, mind you, but I'm not betting against her either." Victor, overhearing them, said nothing, but he made a mental note to check his storage unit for other equipment that might be useful for a shop getting started on a shoestring budget, just in case. 2 weeks after the Chamber of Commerce meeting, Vanessa stood in the center bay of her newly pressure-washed shop floor, squinting at the sunlight streaming through windows that hadn't been cleaned in years. The building around her was still a work in progress. Fresh paint on the customer waiting area, new LED lighting in the service bays, but the roof still leaked in the corner when it rained heavily, and the ancient air compressor made alarming noises when it built up pressure. Like everything else in the former Johnson's Auto Repair, it required far more work than she had initially estimated. She consulted the building inspection report that had arrived yesterday, confirming what she had suspected. The electrical system would need a complete overhaul before she could install the modern diagnostic equipment she'd need to service newer vehicles. The cost would be nearly $12,000 she hadn't budgeted for. Another setback in a growing list. The sound of an approaching vehicle drew Vanessa's attention. A mud-splattered pickup truck with Fitzgerald Auto Parts emblazoned on the door pulled into her freshly swept parking lot, Eleanor Fitzgerald at the wheel. Vanessa took a deep breath before walking over to meet her. Though their initial encounter had been civil, Eleanor represented the established business community that still viewed her with skepticism. "Morning, Miss Reeves," Eleanor said as she climbed out of the truck. Her tone was professionally polite, but carried an undercurrent of doubt that hadn't diminished since their first meeting. "Got your order of filters and basic inventory. Had to special order those recycled oil pans you wanted. Not much demand for eco-friendly options around here." "I appreciate you going to the trouble," Vanessa replied, watching as Eleanor lowered the truck's tailgate to unload the boxes. Eleanor gestured toward the building. "I see you've been busy. Got some of that electrical work started." "Just the preliminary rewiring in the customer area," Vanessa confirmed. "The main service bay upgrades will have to wait until I've built up some operating capital." The inspector wasn't thrilled, but he agreed to a phased compliance plan. "Heard you hired the Sullivan kid to help with the computers and phone system." Vanessa nodded. "Jamie's been a godsend. Computer science major home for the summer. He's setting up our digital vehicle tracking system while he's here." "Jamie's a good kid," Eleanor agreed. "But running a repair business is a lot more than fancy software and clean windows." She shook her head as she surveyed the property. Johnson ran this place with 3 experienced mechanics and still couldn't make it work. Johnson was trying to run a traditional full-service repair shop in a building that needed $200,000 in upgrades, Vanessa said carefully. "I'm taking a different approach." Eleanor frowned. "Johnson serviced cars in this town for 30 years. His father before him, they knew what they were doing." "I'm sure they did," Vanessa said evenly. But times have changed. Modern vehicles, digital diagnostics, customer expectations, the economics of repair work are different now. Maybe in your fancy business plans, Eleanor replied, her voice hardening. But here in the real world, trying to run a repair shop without the proper equipment and experienced staff is asking for trouble. First major diagnostic error, first comeback, first warranty issue. You'll be underwater fast. Vanessa had heard variations of this warning from nearly everyone she'd met in Pinewood Harbor. The persistent skepticism was wearing, but she kept her expression neutral. That's why we're starting with basic services and transparent pricing, and why I've installed that customer communication system, she explained. People appreciate knowing exactly what's happening with their vehicles. Before Eleanor could respond, Zoe emerged from the office, tablet in hand and wireless earbuds in one ear. "Mom, the website is live, and I've set up the appointment scheduling system. Want to see the analytics dashboard?" "I'll be right there, honey," Vanessa called back. Eleanor watched the exchange with a mixture of amusement and something harder to define. "Your daughter seems to be taking to the business." "Zoe's always been tech-savvy," Vanessa replied with a smile. "She's already keeping better track of our digital marketing than I could." As if to prove her point, Zoe approached and handed Eleanor a professionally designed business card. "Our grand opening is next Saturday. We're offering free vehicle safety inspections and basic maintenance assessments. The QR code links to our online scheduling system." Eleanor accepted the card with a bemused expression. "Well, aren't you the little marketing director?" "Actually, I'm the digital operations manager," Zoe replied matter-of-factly. "I've been analyzing the local search trends. Did you know that honest mechanic near me is one of the most common automotive searches in this county? There's clearly demand for transparent service." Eleanor glanced at Vanessa with newfound curiosity. "You're teaching her a lot about business." "She's teaching me too," Vanessa admitted. "Zoe's digital skills have been invaluable. I couldn't have built our online presence without her." As if summoned by the conversation, Jamie Sullivan emerged from the back office, his face alight with excitement. "Ms. Reeves, the server setup is complete and the diagnostic interface is working with the tablets. We can now track vehicle status in real time from anywhere in the shop." The pride in his voice brought a smile to Vanessa's face, despite her fatigue and worries. Eleanor looked from the enthusiastic college student to Zoe's confident expression, to Vanessa's determined stance. Something shifted in her demeanor, not approval exactly, but perhaps a grudging recognition that Vanessa's commitment went beyond what she had expected. "Well, you better get a proper invoice system set up then," she said, reaching into her truck and pulling out a small box. "These were headed for recycling, but sounds like you might have use for them." She handed Jamie a package of specialized thermal printer paper for service receipts. Jamie accepted the gift with gratitude. "Thanks, Ms. Fitzgerald. This is perfect for the mobile printer system. Just don't expect those fancy computer systems to replace actual mechanical knowledge," Eleanor added, unable to resist one more skeptical comment. "People around here know what good service looks like." "Actually," Vanessa interjected, "we've already had inquiries from summer residents about European vehicle maintenance. They're willing to drive from their vacation homes because the nearest certified service center is over an hour away." Eleanor's expression clouded. "Summer people. That's your market, not year-round locals." "Both, ideally," Vanessa explained. "The seasonal customers help with cash flow, but I'm committed to providing affordable service for the community. That's why our pricing is tiered. Premium service for specialty vehicles, standard rates for regular maintenance." "Don't hold your breath on winning over the locals," Eleanor scoffed. "They've been going to Victor and the other established shops for generations." She climbed back into her truck, her face set in skeptical lines. "Good luck with your fancy software and summer customers, Ms. Reeves. You'll need it when winter comes and they all disappear back to Boston." "Vanessa," watched her drive away, the dust from her tires settling on the freshly painted curb stops. Each day brought similar interactions, moments of connection undermined by deep skepticism, small kindnesses followed by dismissive predictions of her failure. "Don't worry, Mom," Zoe said, seeing the tension in Vanessa's shoulders. "Mr. Chen, from the hybrid shop, said the same thing last week, and then he ended up giving us access to his technical database." Vanessa smiled at her perceptive daughter. "You're right, actions speak louder than words around here." "And our actions are going to build the best auto shop ever," Jamie declared with the absolute confidence only a 20-year-old could muster. Together, they walked back toward the office, but Vanessa paused as she caught sight of an unfamiliar car slowing as it passed their property. The driver, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, seemed to be taking pictures with his phone. "Who's that?" Zoe asked, following her mother's gaze. "I don't know," Vanessa replied, an uneasy feeling settling in her stomach. It was the third such car this week, people who were clearly not locals, showing unusual interest in the former Johnson's auto repair. Later that afternoon, as Vanessa struggled to organize the chaotic parts inventory system she'd inherited, she heard the crunch of tires on gravel again. Looking up, she recognized Victor Menendez's service truck. Unlike Eleanor, Victor had been true to his word about lending equipment, though his help always came with plenty of advice and warnings. "Afternoon, Vanessa," he called as he climbed out of the truck. In the 2 weeks since the chamber meeting, they had progressed to first names, a small but significant sign of acceptance. "Saw you wrestling with that old alignment rack earlier. Thought you might need a hand." "Thanks, Victor," Vanessa said gratefully, wiping sweat from her forehead and inadvertently leaving a streak of grease. "But I think I've got it figured out. The calibration system just needed cleaning." Victor looked impressed, despite himself. "You know your way around alignment equipment." "My father taught me the basics," Vanessa explained. "He specialized in suspension work before computerized systems took over. Some principles never change." Victor nodded appreciatively. "Useful skills. But I actually came by to warn you about something." Vanessa tensed. "What's wrong?" "Been hearing rumors." "At Rachel's diner," Victor said, lowering his voice, though there was no one else around. "Atlantic Regional Development has been asking questions about properties in the industrial district. Raymond Chen said a representative approached him last week about selling his property." "Atlantic Regional Development," Vanessa repeated, a chill running through her that had nothing to do with the air conditioning she'd just repaired. "The commercial real estate conglomerate?" Victor nodded grimly. "They've been buying up waterfront and near-waterfront properties all along the coast, consolidating them for mixed-use developments. Word is they're looking to transform this whole district into some kind of harbor village concept with boutiques and vacation rentals." "And they're interested in my property?" Vanessa asked, pieces falling into place. "The mysterious cars, the strangers taking photos. Can't say for certain," Victor replied, "but that Johnson building has the best location in the district. Sits on the corner lot with harbor views from the second floor. That's valuable to a development operation." Vanessa felt sick. She had invested everything she had, financially and emotionally, into this fresh start. "They can't force me to sell." "No," Victor agreed, "but they can make it mighty uncomfortable to refuse. They've been known to buy surrounding properties and then create problems for holdouts, restricting access, filing nuisance complaints, that sort of thing." He hesitated before adding, "Some folks around here might see selling to ARD as a good thing. They pay fair market value, and the development would bring different kinds of jobs. Not everyone shares your vision of keeping the industrial district as a working waterfront." The implication was clear. Vanessa might find herself even more isolated if development interests divided the community. It was yet another challenge she hadn't anticipated. "Thanks for the warning," she said, straightening her shoulders, "but I didn't come this far to give up at the first sign of pressure." Victor studied her for a long moment before a slow smile spread across his weathered face. "Didn't figure you for a quitter, just wanted you to know what you might be up against." As he turned to leave, he added, "By the way, Maria wanted me to ask if you and Zoe would like to come to dinner this weekend. Nothing fancy, just grilled fish and whatever's fresh at the market. She wants to hear more about that customer communication system you mentioned. Could be useful for our shop too." The invitation caught Vanessa by surprise. It was the first social overture any of the established business families had extended. "We'd like that very much," she said, trying not to sound as touched as she felt. Victor nodded. 6 o'clock Saturday, then. And Vanessa might want to bring that business plan of yours. I know some folks who might be interested in your approach to the summer resident market. Could be there's something to your strategy, different as it is." After he drove away, Vanessa stood in the middle of her fledgling repair shop. The freshly organized tools, the newly painted service bays, the digital displays showing no appointments yet, and felt the full weight of the challenges ahead. Equipment limitations, community skepticism, development pressure. But then she heard Zoe's laugh from the office as she worked with Jamie on their website, and she remembered why she had taken this risk in the first place. Not just to build a sustainable business, but to give her daughter roots, purpose, and the satisfaction of creating something meaningful together. The sun was setting over Pinewood Harbor, casting long shadows across the industrial district that had been home to working-class businesses for generations. Vanessa was an outsider, a woman with determination and vision rather than a lifetime of local connections. But as she walked toward the office where her daughter waited, she felt a growing certainty that this place, challenging and unwelcoming as it sometimes seemed, was exactly where they belonged. What she didn't yet know was that the greatest test of that conviction was hidden directly beneath her feet, and it would upend not just her business plans, but potentially international security. The grand opening of Reeves Auto Service exceeded all of Vanessa's modest expectations. The free safety inspections brought in a steady stream of curious locals, many openly skeptical, but unable to resist a free service. Zoe's social media campaign had attracted summer residents with European vehicles, drawn by the promise of certified service without the long drive to the city. By the end of the day, they had booked 15 appointments for the coming week and received cautiously positive feedback on their transparent pricing structure. "Not bad for day one," Victor acknowledged when he stopped by late in the afternoon, "though the real test comes when you start doing actual repair work." "I know," Vanessa agreed, "but at least people are willing to give us a chance." As promising as the public launch had been, it was what happened after hours that would change everything. Vanessa was in the rear storage room, trying to organize the chaotic inventory system she'd inherited, when she noticed something odd about the floor. Near the back wall, a section of the concrete had a slightly different coloration, forming a rough square about 4 feet across. "That's strange," she muttered, kneeling to examine it more closely. The variation was subtle, only visible when the light hit it. At a certain angle, she ran her hand across the surface, feeling a barely perceptible seam. Curiosity piqued. She grabbed a flashlight from her toolbox and examined the edges more carefully. There was definitely a cut in the concrete, deliberately disguised, but unmistakable to someone looking closely. One corner featured a small indentation. That might once have been a handle point. "What are you doing back here, Mom?" Zoe asked, appearing in the doorway. "I thought we were getting pizza to celebrate." "Look at this," Vanessa said, waving her daughter over. "Does this floor section look different to you?" Zoe crouched beside her mother, her expression shifting from mild annoyance to interest. "It's like a trap door or something. You think there's a storage cellar? Johnson never mentioned anything like that, Vanessa mused. Neither did the building inspector. They exchanged a look that mirrored each other's thoughts, a combination of caution and irresistible curiosity. Only one way to find out, Vanessa decided, retrieving a pry bar from her tool set. It took nearly 20 minutes of careful work to break the seal around the edges. Years of grime and possibly deliberate concealment had effectively hidden the access point. When they finally created enough leverage to lift the concrete panel, it revealed a metal hatch with an old-fashioned combination lock. "Okay, this is officially weird," Zoe declared, capturing the discovery on her phone. "Who puts a locked hatch under a false floor in an auto repair shop?" "Could be an old fallout shelter," Vanessa suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. "This building dates back to the Cold War era. The combination lock presented another challenge, but Vanessa was reluctant to damage it. "Let me try something," she said, examining the mechanism. "Mr. Johnson's son gave me a notebook with all his father's business information, account numbers, supplier contacts. Maybe there's something about this." The notebook, a battered ledger filled with Johnson's cramped handwriting, contained mostly mundane business records. But on the inside back cover, written in faded ink, was a series of numbers with no explanation. 10, 32, 17, 4. "Worth a try," Vanessa muttered, turning the dial carefully. To her surprise, the lock clicked open on the first attempt. "No way," Zoe breathed. "That's either incredibly lucky or seriously suspicious." Vanessa hesitated, suddenly aware that they might be crossing a line. "Maybe we should call someone before we go further." "Like who?" Zoe countered. "The police?" "Hello, officer. We found a secret hatch in our legally purchased building and thought you should know. They'll think we're crazy." After another moment's hesitation, Vanessa's curiosity won out. She pulled the hatch open, revealing a metal ladder descending into darkness. The beam of her flashlight illuminated what appeared to be a concrete chamber, about 8 feet below. "I'm going down," she decided. "You stay here." "Absolutely not," Zoe protested. "This is exactly how horror movies start. Either we both go, or neither of us goes." Vanessa recognized the stubborn set of her daughter's jaw, a trait she'd inherited honestly, and nodded. "Fine, but I go first, and if anything seems dangerous, we're out of there immediately." The ladder was solid despite its age, and the chamber below was surprisingly clean and dry. As Vanessa's flashlight swept the space, both women gasped. It wasn't a fallout shelter. It was an underground room about 20 feet square, its walls lined with metal filing cabinets. A desk with an ancient-looking computer terminal occupied one corner, while maps covered another wall, dotted with pins and notations in a language neither recognized immediately. "Mom," Zoe whispered, her voice tight with uncertainty. "What is this place?" Vanessa shook her head, equally baffled. "I have no idea." They moved cautiously through the room. The filing cabinets were locked, but a set of keys hung on a hook near the desk. Opening the first cabinet revealed folders labeled, in what appeared to be code, alphanumeric sequences that meant nothing to either of them. But the contents were even more perplexing. Technical diagrams, photographs of military installations, and documents in multiple languages, including what Vanessa recognized as Russian and German. "These look like intelligence files," Vanessa said slowly, the implications sending a chill down her spine. Zoe had moved to the computer terminal and pressed its power button experimentally. To their surprise, it hummed to life, illuminating the room with its blue-green glow. The screen displayed a simple prompt: "Enter access code." "Don't touch anything else," Vanessa warned, suddenly acutely aware that they were in over their heads. "We need to secure this place and call someone." "Call who?" Zoe asked again, but this time with genuine concern rather than teenage defiance. It was a good question. Who did you call when you discovered what appeared to be an intelligence operation hidden beneath your newly purchased auto repair shop? The answer came unexpectedly the following morning. Vanessa had secured the hatch, slept poorly, and was contemplating her next move when a black SUV with government plates pulled into her parking lot. Two men in suits emerged, their manner professional but alert as they surveyed the building. "Ms. Reeves," the older of the two called as they approached the entrance. "I'm Agent Daniel Cooper, Department of Defense. This is Agent Wilson. We'd like to speak with you privately about this property." Vanessa's heart hammered in her chest. How could they possibly know what she'd discovered less than 12 hours ago? Had the room been monitored somehow? Was Johnson involved with intelligence work? "What's this about?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "It would be better to discuss inside," Cooper replied, his tone brooking no argument despite his polite phrasing. Once, in her small office, with the door firmly closed, Cooper got straight to the point. "Ms. Reeves, we have reason to believe you've discovered a secure facility beneath this building. We need you to tell us exactly what you found and what actions you've taken since the discovery." The directness of the question confirmed her suspicions and paradoxically calmed her nerves. At least they were acknowledging the reality of what she'd found rather than gaslighting her. "My daughter and I discovered a hidden chamber last night," she admitted. "It contains filing cabinets with what appear to be intelligence documents and an old computer terminal. We didn't remove anything, and we secured the access point before leaving." Cooper and Wilson exchanged glances. "And you accessed this chamber how?" "There's a concealed hatch under a section of the storeroom floor. It was locked with a combination that we found in Mr. Johnson's business records." Cooper nodded, as if this confirmed something. "Ms. Reeves, what you've discovered is a former NATO intelligence relay station designated Anchor Point. It was decommissioned officially in 1989, but was maintained as a ghost site for emergency contingencies." "Mr. Johnson was a NATO intelligence officer?" Vanessa asked incredulously. "Not exactly," Wilson spoke for the first time. "Johnson was what we call a passive custodian. He owned the property that concealed the facility and maintained minimal awareness of its existence without knowing its purpose or contents. He was compensated for his discretion." "The station should have been properly decommissioned and cleared when Johnson's health declined," Cooper continued. "But it appears the protocols weren't followed correctly. What you've found may contain sensitive information that remains classified." Vanessa processed this startling information. "So what happens now? Am I in trouble for finding it?" "No," Cooper assured her. "You've done nothing wrong, but we will need to secure the facility and remove the classified materials. The question is, what happens to your business during that process?" The agent's revelation about the NATO intelligence facility beneath her shop left Vanessa reeling. As Cooper outlined the situation, the implications for her fledgling business became increasingly clear and troubling. "We'll need to close off the site completely for a minimum of 2 weeks, Cooper explained, his tone professional but unyielding. "A specialized team will inventory and remove all classified materials, then permanently seal the underground chamber. During this time, no unauthorized personnel can access the building." 2 weeks? Vanessa echoed, her voice hollow. "I just had my grand opening yesterday. I have appointments scheduled, customers who've trusted me with their vehicles." Wilson, the younger agent, shifted uncomfortably. "We understand this creates a hardship, Ms. Reeves. The department has protocols for compensating affected civilians in such scenarios." "I don't want compensation," Vanessa said firmly. "I want to keep my business open. This shop represents everything I have, financially, emotionally, for my daughter's future. There must be some compromise." Cooper studied her with newfound interest. Most people would be looking for a payout and a way out of this situation. I'm not most people, Vanessa replied, and I didn't come to Pinewood Harbor looking for an easy path. An idea began forming in her mind, one born of necessity and determination. What if you contained your operation to the back storage area? I could rearrange the service bays to work without accessing that section. Your team gets what they need, and my business doesn't die before it even gets started. The agents exchanged glances, communicating silently in the way of long-term partners. It's unorthodox, Cooper admitted, but potentially workable with the right security protocols. After a lengthy discussion of logistics and signing multiple confidentiality agreements, they reached a compromise. The government team would establish a secure perimeter around the storage room, creating a separate entrance through the back of the building. Vanessa would reconfigure her operation to function with the reduced space, and most critically, neither she nor Zoe would discuss what they'd found with anyone. As the agents prepared to leave, Cooper paused. Just out of curiosity, Ms. Reeves, how did you manage to purchase this property for only $800 when it clearly has significant value? Vanessa shrugged. Johnson's children wanted a quick sale. I guess they didn't know what was beneath the floor either. Interesting, Cooper mused, because our records indicate that Michael Johnson was receiving quarterly payments to maintain the site's security. Those payments continued until his death last year? Someone was paying him to keep this place secure, and his children sold it for next to nothing. Vanessa's investigative instincts, honed through years of auditing medical equipment inventory discrepancies, kicked in. That doesn't make sense, unless they didn't know about the payments, Wilson finished her thought. Or someone wanted this property to change hands quietly without attracting attention. Cooper's expression hardened. We'll look into the financial trail. In the meantime, maintain absolute discretion. What you've stumbled into may be more current than a Cold War relic. After the agents left, Vanessa sat alone in her office, the weight of this new complication pressing down on her already burdened shoulders. How was she supposed to run a business while government agents extracted classified information from beneath her shop? How would she explain the restricted area to customers and neighbors without raising suspicions? The bell above. The door chimed, interrupting her spiraling thoughts. Zoe entered, returning from her errand to the office supply store, her expression shifting immediately to concern when she saw her mother's face. "Mom, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Vanessa quickly filled her in on the agents' visit and their compromise, watching as her daughter processed the extraordinary situation. "So we're running an auto shop on top of a spy base, and we can't tell anyone," Zoe summarized, her tone hovering between disbelief and excitement. "That's either the coolest thing ever or the beginning of a really bad thriller movie." Despite her stress, Vanessa found herself smiling at her daughter's resilience. "Let's hope it's neither. We just need to keep the business running while they do their work. 2 weeks, then back to normal." Zoe considered this, her natural problem-solving instincts engaging. "We could rearrange the diagnostic equipment to the front bay, move the tool storage to the customer waiting area, and use the parking lot for overflow work. It's not ideal, but it's doable." Looking at her daughter's determined expression, Vanessa felt a surge of pride. Most teenagers would be overwhelmed or looking for escape, but Zoe was already mapping out solutions, adapting to circumstances that would challenge even seasoned business owners. "When did you get so good at this?" Vanessa asked softly. Zoe shrugged, but her eyes reflected a quiet confidence. "I've been watching you my whole life, Mom. You never give up, no matter what gets thrown at you. Why would I be any different?" The simple observation hit Vanessa with unexpected force. Through all her struggles as a single mother, the late nights working multiple jobs, the constant financial juggling, the sacrifices made to provide stability, She had never considered that Zoe was internalizing not just the hardships, but the perseverance. "We should start moving things around before our first appointment tomorrow," Zoe continued practically. "I'll update the online scheduling system to reflect our reduced capacity." Together, they began the challenging task of reconfiguring the shop. What should have been a discouraging setback transformed into a focused problem-solving exercise, with mother and daughter finding creative ways to utilize every available square foot of their remaining space. By late evening, exhausted but satisfied with their progress, they were interrupted by another unexpected visitor. Victor Menendez's truck pulled into the now empty parking lot, the veteran mechanic looking surprised to find them still working at such a late hour. "Everything all right?" he called as he approached, taking in the dramatically rearranged shop. "Looks like you're doing some major reorganizing." Vanessa froze momentarily, caught between the confidentiality agreement she'd signed and the need for a plausible explanation. "We discovered some structural issues in the back storage area," she improvised. "Need to keep it closed off until repairs can be completed." Victor's experienced eyes scanned the space, clearly noting the peculiar arrangement but not commenting directly. "Need any help setting up? That diagnostic station looks like it needs proper electrical configuration." The offer of assistance, practical and specific rather than questioning, reminded Vanessa why she'd been drawn to this community despite its initial skepticism. Beneath the gruff exteriors and suspicion of outsiders lay a fundamental willingness to help a neighbor in need. "That would be great, actually," she admitted. "The power requirements are different in this part of the building." As Victor helped them complete the reconfiguration, he shared stories of his own early days in business, the unexpected challenges, the creative solutions, the times when he nearly gave up but found a way through. Each anecdote contained a nugget of practical wisdom, offered without condescension or pity. "Business is never a straight road," he concluded as they finished. "The ones who succeed aren't those who avoid obstacles. They're the ones who get good at navigating around them." After he left, Vanessa and Zoe collapsed onto the chairs in the waiting area, physically drained but mentally buoyed by the progress they'd made. "We can do this," Zoe declared, her conviction unwavering despite the day's revelations. Looking at their transformed shop, Vanessa found herself believing it too. Yes, we can. The following morning brought the government team, 6 individuals in civilian clothes with military efficiency, arriving in unmarked vans before dawn. Cooper introduced the team leader, a woman named Daniels, whose handshake was firm and whose eyes missed nothing. "We'll maintain a separate operation and minimize impact on your business," Daniels assured Vanessa. "But there's something you should know. Our preliminary assessment indicates this may not be a simple extraction. The technology in the chamber is actively running specific monitoring protocols." "You mean it's still operational?" Vanessa asked, alarmed. "After all these years?" "Some Cold War systems were designed to run autonomously for decades," Daniels explained, "but this particular configuration suggests updates much more recent than 1989. Someone has maintained this station." The implications sent a chill down Vanessa's spine. Mr. Johnson, possibly, or someone using his property without his knowledge. Daniels's expression revealed nothing beyond professional focus. "Either way, proceed with your business as normally as possible. Any unusual interest in your property or operation should be reported to Agent Cooper immediately." With that unsettling guidance, Vanessa opened Reeves Auto Service for its first full day of operation, minus a storage room and with government agents extracting classified intelligence materials just feet away from where she was changing oil and diagnosing check engine lights. The day progressed with surprising smoothness, considering the extraordinary circumstances. The reconfigured shop was cramped but functional. Customers seemed to accept the explanation of structural repairs without question, and Zoe deftly managed the scheduling to account for their reduced capacity. By mid-afternoon, Vanessa was almost able to forget about the covert operation happening behind the temporary wall until Eleanor Fitzgerald arrived with a parts delivery and an unusually inquisitive manner. "Quite the remodeling project," Eleanor remarked, her eyes lingering on the sealed-off area. "Funny, I don't remember Johnson ever mentioning structural problems with that section." "Probably why he never addressed them," Vanessa replied lightly, redirecting attention to the invoice. The building inspector found issues that had been ignored for years. Eleanor didn't seem entirely satisfied with this explanation. "Saw some people going in through the back earlier, contractors." The question seemed casual, but something in Eleanor's tone set off warning bells in Vanessa's mind. Was this simple neighborhood curiosity or something more targeted? "Environmental remediation team," Vanessa answered, recalling the cover story Cooper had suggested. "Found some old oil contamination that needs specialized cleanup." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Interesting. Very thorough approach for a shop operating on such tight margins." Before Vanessa could respond, Zoe emerged from the office, her timing perfect, whether intentional or coincidental. "Ms. Fitzgerald, could I get your advice on something? We're trying to optimize our parts ordering system, and since you've been in the business so long..." The strategic flattery worked, diverting Eleanor's attention from the sealed area to her area of expertise. As the older woman began explaining inventory management practices, Vanessa caught her daughter's eye and mouthed a silent, "Thank you." The day ended without further incident, but Eleanor's unusual interest lingered in Vanessa's mind. After closing, she mentioned it to Cooper during their daily briefing. "Fitzgerald Auto Parts," he noted, typing something into his tablet. "Family-owned since the 1940s. No security flags in our database." He looked up. "Still, good instincts to notice. Keep track of anyone showing particular interest in your operation." "Is there something specific I should be watching for?" Vanessa pressed. "You said this facility was supposed to be decommissioned decades ago, but it's been maintained. By whom and why?" Cooper hesitated, clearly weighing operational security against Vanessa's need for context. This location was part of a network monitoring Soviet submarine movements along the eastern seaboard. After the Cold War ended, most stations were closed, but some were maintained as listening posts for other potential threats. Like what? Terrorism, nuclear proliferation, narcotics trafficking, Cooper listed. "The point is, while officially decommissioned, this site may have been repurposed. We're still determining who authorized continued operation and what exactly they were monitoring." "And I'm caught in the middle of it," Vanessa concluded. "Unfortunately, yes." Cooper's professional demeanor softened slightly. "For what it's worth, you're handling it remarkably well. Most civilians would be falling apart or demanding relocation by now." Vanessa thought about her journey to this point. The job loss, the risk of starting over, the community's skepticism, and now, this extraordinary complication. Each challenge might have been reason enough to give up, yet each had only strengthened her resolve. "I've come too far to be derailed now," she said simply, "even by international espionage." The next morning brought an unexpected surge in customers. Word was spreading about the new shop's transparent pricing and detailed digital reports. Vanessa was diagnosing a persistent electrical problem in a summer residence BMW when she noticed a black luxury sedan cruising slowly past the shop for the third time that hour. Following Cooper's instructions, she casually noted the license plate while continuing her work. When the same vehicle parked across the street 30 minutes later, a well-dressed man emerging to take photos with a professional camera, she texted the information to Cooper's secure number. Within minutes, Agent Wilson appeared, ostensibly bringing coffee as a friendly gesture, but positioned to observe the photographer. After a brief conversation on his phone, he approached Vanessa at the diagnostic computer. "Atlantic Regional Development," he murmured, keeping his voice low. "Robert Mercer, their head of acquisitions, been purchasing properties throughout the district." "The development company Victor warned me about," Vanessa confirmed. "They want to transform the industrial district into upscale retail and condos. Interesting timing for them to take such focused interest in your specific property," Wilson noted. "Could be coincidence, but we don't like coincidences." Vanessa thought about the peculiar circumstances of her purchase, the absurdly low price, Johnson's children seemingly unaware of the property's special status or the payments their father had received. "You think there's a connection between ARD and whatever's happening with the underground facility?" she asked quietly. "We're looking into all possibilities," Wilson replied diplomatically. "In the meantime, if Mercer approaches you directly, engage normally, but share the details with us immediately." She didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, as she was finishing with her last scheduled customer, Robert Mercer himself entered the shop, his tailored suit and manicured appearance distinctly out of place among the tools and equipment. "Ms. Reeves," he called, his practiced smile revealing perfect teeth. "Robert Mercer, Atlantic Regional Development. Do you have a moment to discuss an opportunity?" Vanessa wiped her hands on a shop towel, taking a measured breath before answering. "What kind of opportunity, Mr. Mercer?" "A potentially lucrative one for you," he replied, glancing around the shop with poorly disguised disdain for its industrial functionality. ARD is developing a comprehensive harbor village concept for this district. Boutique retail, luxury condominiums, a yacht marina, transforming this underutilized industrial zone into a destination property. "And you want my location?" Vanessa concluded. Mercer's smile widened. "Your property occupies a key position in our master plan. We're prepared to make a very generous offer, well above market value. Enough for you to relocate to a more suitable location, or perhaps even retire comfortably." The temptation flickered briefly. Financial security, an end to the struggle, resources to provide for Zoe's education without constant worry. But something in Mercer's too smooth manner and the timing of his interest reinforced her suspicions. "I'm not interested in selling, Mr. Mercer," she replied firmly. "I've just opened my business and invested significantly in this location." His smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened slightly. "I understand your hesitation. New ventures require emotional investment. But being practical, this location has significant challenges for an automotive business. Outdated infrastructure, environmental remediation needs, limited expansion potential." He gestured toward the sealed-off area. "I understand you're already facing structural issues requiring extensive repairs. Our offer would alleviate those concerns entirely." The specific mention of the sealed area sent warning signals through Vanessa's mind. How did he know about that so quickly? Had he been watching the property even before she discovered the underground chamber? "My business is doing well, and I'm addressing the building issues systematically," she replied, careful to reveal nothing. "I appreciate your interest, but this property isn't for sale." Mercer's expression cooled further. "Ms. Reeves, development is inevitable in this district. The Zoning Commission is already reviewing changes that would significantly impact automotive operations in this zone. Early participants in our vision receive premium compensation. Latecomers often find themselves disadvantaged." The veiled threat was unmistakable. Vanessa maintained her composed expression through years of practice negotiating with difficult hospital administrators and supply chain managers. "I'll take my chances with the Zoning Commission, Mr. Mercer. Now, if you'll—" "Excuse me, I have vehicles to finish before closing." After Mercer departed, Vanessa immediately contacted Cooper, relaying the conversation in detail. The agent's response was measured but concerned. "We'll investigate potential connections between ARD and our situation. In the meantime, be careful. Development companies typically employ legal and political pressure, not physical threats, but given the unusual circumstances." "You think I might be in danger?" Vanessa asked bluntly. "I think caution is warranted," Cooper replied. "We're accelerating our timeline for clearing the facility. The team will work through the night if necessary." That evening, Vanessa and Zoe accepted Victor and Maria's dinner invitation, grateful for the distraction from the day's tensions. The Menendez home was a modest but well-maintained bungalow filled with family photos and mementos from decades in the community. Maria served a delicious seafood paella. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Victor shared stories from his early days as a mechanic, while Maria revealed her background in accounting before joining the family business. Zoe and the Menendez's college-age son, Michael, discovered shared interests in programming and digital marketing. "You know," Maria said as they enjoyed coffee after dinner, "when you first showed up at that chamber meeting, I gave you 6 weeks tops." "Maria," Victor chided, but his wife waved him off. "It's true, we've seen plenty of newcomers with big ideas, but no staying power." She smiled warmly at Vanessa. "I'm glad to be proven wrong. The way you've handled the challenges you faced. It's impressive." "What challenges exactly?" Vanessa asked carefully, wondering how much the community had noticed. "Starting a business with limited capital, facing skepticism as an outsider, being a woman in a traditionally male industry," Maria listed, "and now dealing with structural problems and development pressure." Victor nodded. "Mercer's been making rounds to all the property owners, offering above-market value but making it clear that holdouts will face consequences." "You've been approached too?" Vanessa asked. "Yesterday, offered double the assessed value for our shop." Victor's expression darkened. "When I declined, he mentioned potential changes to environmental regulations that would make auto repair prohibitively expensive in the harbor district." Maria reached for her husband's hand. 3 generations of Menendez mechanics have operated from that location. We're not giving it up for condominiums and yoga studios." The solidarity warmed Vanessa unexpectedly. She wasn't alone in this fight, at least the parts of it she could share publicly. "What if we organized the district businesses?" she suggested. "Presented a united front against the rezoning?" Victor considered this. "Might work. Several owners are on the fence, but if enough of us stand firm—" "Community pressure still matters in local politics," Maria agreed, "especially with elections coming up." As they discussed strategy, Vanessa felt a growing sense of connection to this place and these people. Despite the extraordinary secret beneath her shop and the uncertainty it created, she was finding her place in Pinewood Harbor, not as an accepted outsider, but as an integrated member with a stake in the community's future. The sense of connection made what happened next all the more devastating. Dawn broke over Pinewood Harbor, painting the industrial district in soft gold light that belied the tension that had built overnight. Vanessa arrived at her shop earlier than usual, sensing the accelerated urgency in Cooper's team. The government agents had worked through the night, their unmarked vans still parked discreetly behind the building. Cooper met her at the side entrance, his normally composed demeanor showing signs of strain. Stubble shadowed his jaw, and his eyes carried the sharp focus of someone operating on minimal sleep. "We've got a situation," he said without preamble, guiding her to the small office where Daniels was coordinating the team's efforts. The facility wasn't just monitoring Soviet submarine activity, it was tracking something much more current. On a secure laptop, Daniels brought up a series of maps showing the eastern seaboard, with particular focus on the harbor and surrounding waters. This station was maintained off books to monitor suspected weapons trafficking through seemingly legitimate shipping operations. Weapons trafficking? Vanessa echoed. Here in Pinewood Harbor? Not exactly. Cooper handed her a file folder. The system was tracking irregular shipping patterns and radiation signatures that didn't match. Declared cargo. The data suggests someone has been moving components for potential radiological devices through commercial channels, using this harbor as one transit point. Vanessa stared at the documents, the technical language swimming before her eyes. I don't understand. What does this have to do with the development company pressuring me to sell? Daniels pointed to a highlighted name on one of the documents. Meridian Shipping Consortium. On paper, they're a commercial freight operator. In reality, they're a shell company that appears repeatedly in our intelligence about the trafficking network. And they're owned by Oceanic Ventures, Cooper continued, which is a primary investor in Atlantic Regional Development, Vanessa finished, the connections clicking into place. Mercer's company. Cooper nodded grimly. We believe ARD's interest in the Harbor District isn't just about luxury condos. It's about controlling access to the waterfront and eliminating potential witnesses or interference with their shipping operations. That's why they're pushing so hard for rezoning, Vanessa realized. Industrial businesses with people coming and going at all hours are harder to control than upscale residences with security gates and limited access. Exactly. Daniels closed the laptop. And Johnson's shop, your shop, is particularly problematic for them because it literally sits on top of a monitoring station designed to detect exactly what they're doing. The implications crashed over Vanessa like a wave. So when I refused to sell, you became a potential obstacle, Cooper confirmed, one they might decide to remove by means beyond legal pressure. Fear tightened Vanessa's chest, not for herself, but for Zoe. My daughter is already being picked up by Agent Wilson, Cooper assured her. We're placing you both in protective custody until we can secure the evidence we need from the facility and coordinate with the FBI to move against Mercer and his operation. Vanessa's mind raced through the implications. Protective custody meant abandoning the shop she'd fought so hard to establish. It meant disappearing from the community just as she was beginning to find her place. It meant disrupting Zoe's life yet again. How long? She asked, her voice tight. Impossible to say, Cooper admitted. Weeks, possibly months, if this becomes a formal witness protection situation. No. The word escaped before Vanessa had fully processed her own thoughts. There has to be another way. Cooper's expression hardened. Ms. Reeves, I don't think you appreciate the seriousness of this situation. These people move weapons components that could kill thousands. They won't hesitate to eliminate a single witness. I understand the danger, Vanessa insisted, but running away solves nothing. It lets them win. Not just against me, but against this entire community. What happens to Victor and Maria's shop, to Eleanor's parts store, to everyone else who's standing against the development? That's not our concern, Daniels interjected. Our priority is securing the intelligence and ensuring civilian safety. Vanessa paced the small office, frustration building within her. Throughout her life, she had faced obstacles that seemed insurmountable, raising Zoe alone, losing her corporate job, starting over with nothing but determination and an $800 auto shop. Each time, the easy path would have been to retreat, to accept limitation, to settle for less than she knew was possible. What if we use this situation instead of running from it? She suggested, an idea forming. You need evidence against Mercer and his operation. What if I helped you get it? Cooper looked skeptical. What exactly are you proposing? Mercer wants this property desperately. Let's use that. I'll tell him I've reconsidered his offer, but I want to meet with the principal investors, not just the front man. Vanessa's mind raced ahead, assembling the strategy. If he's connected to the weapons trafficking, a face-to-face meeting could give you the evidence you need. Absolutely not, Cooper said flatly. We don't use civilians as bait. You wouldn't be using me. I'd be volunteering. Vanessa leaned forward, her determination evident in every line of her body. And I wouldn't be alone. You and your team would monitor everything. A tense silence filled the room as Cooper and Daniels exchanged meaningful glances. It could accelerate our timeline, Daniels admitted reluctantly. A direct meeting might reveal connections we haven't yet documented. It's too risky, Cooper maintained, though Vanessa sensed his resistance weakening. Life is risk, she countered. I didn't come this far to hide in a safe house while everything I've built gets destroyed. I'm offering you a way to catch these people and keep my life intact. After further heated discussion and consultation with their superiors, a compromise was reached. Vanessa would contact Mercer expressing interest in his offer, but the meeting would take place on terms that allowed for complete surveillance and immediate intervention if needed. Zoe would remain under protection, non-negotiable. As the agents finalized the operational details, Vanessa stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The morning sun now illuminated the full harbor, fishing boats and pleasure craft bobbing alongside commercial vessels. The contrast between the peaceful scene and the dangerous undercurrents now revealed struck her forcefully. Her phone vibrated, with the message from Zoe. Safe with Agent Wilson. He says you're being stubborn. That's my mom. Love you. The simple text brought tears to her eyes. Her daughter's confidence in her, unquestioning, absolute, was both her greatest comfort and most profound responsibility. She would not let Zoe down, nor would she surrender the future they were building together. Victor's truck pulled into the parking lot, interrupting her thoughts. He approached with the casual gait of someone stopping by for a friendly chat, completely unaware of the dramatic developments unfolding. "Morning," he called. "Brought that gasket set I mentioned. Thought you might need it for the Henderson job." Vanessa composed herself, grateful for the normal interaction amidst the chaos. "Thanks, Victor. That's really thoughtful." Something in her tone must have betrayed her tension, because Victor's expression shifted to concern. "Everything all right? You seem on edge." The confidentiality agreements she'd signed prevented full disclosure, but Vanessa found herself unwilling to simply lie to someone who had shown her genuine kindness. "Just dealing with some unexpected complications," she said carefully. "The kind that make you question whether you're on the right path." Victor nodded thoughtfully, misinterpreting her words as relating to normal business challenges. "Doubt comes with the territory. When I first took over from my father, I questioned my decision daily. Too young, too inexperienced, too stubborn to admit when I needed help." He gazed across the harbor, his weathered face reflecting decades of perseverance. "But here's what I learned. The path isn't right or wrong. It's just a path. What matters is how you walk it, whether you face the obstacles or let them turn you back." The simple wisdom resonated deeply with Vanessa's current dilemma. "How did you know to keep going?" "Didn't always," Victor admitted with a wry smile. "Some days, I was one broken timing belt away from selling the whole operation. But then I'd fix something everyone else had given up on, or see a customer's relief when their vehicle was running again, and I'd remember why I chose this life." He turned to face her directly. "You've got that same look, you know. When you're diagnosing a problem others missed, or explaining repairs so people actually understand what they're paying for. That's not something you can teach. It's either in you or it isn't." His words strengthened her resolve. "Thank you, Victor. That means more than you know." After he left, Vanessa returned to the agents with renewed determination. "I'm ready. Let's set the trap." The plan came together with military precision. Vanessa would contact Mercer, expressing interest in his offer but requesting a meeting with the principal investors to discuss terms. The encounter would take place at a local restaurant where agents could monitor every word and intervene if necessary. Meanwhile, the team would complete extraction of evidence from the underground facility, creating an airtight case against the trafficking network. Mercer responded to her message with suspicious promptness, agreeing to arrange a meeting with his investment partners the following evening. Everything was proceeding according to plan until an unexpected complication arose from the most surprising source. Eleanor Fitzgerald arrived at the shop just before closing, her manner unusually hesitant. "Got a minute, Vanessa? There's something I need to discuss with you." Cooper, posing as a building inspector, gave Vanessa a subtle nod indicating she should proceed normally. "Of course, Eleanor. What's on your mind?" The older woman glanced around nervously before lowering her voice. "It's about Atlantic Regional Development and Robert Mercer. I've discovered something concerning." Alarm bells rang in Vanessa's mind. What could Eleanor possibly know about ARD that had her so worried? "Let's talk in my office," she suggested, leading Eleanor to the small space where they could speak privately while Cooper monitored from nearby. Once the door closed, Eleanor's composed facade crumbled. "I believe Mercer and his associates are involved in something illegal, something dangerous." Vanessa carefully controlled her reaction. "What makes you say that?" "My nephew works for the Harbor Authority," Eleanor explained. "He's noticed irregularities with some of the cargo shipments associated with Meridian. Shipping, companies using false documentation, containers that don't match their declared contents. When he started asking questions, he was threatened. Threatened how? 2 men approached him in the parking lot, said his curiosity could lead to accidents at sea." Eleanor's hands trembled slightly. "He came to me because he knows. I've been opposing the rezoning. Vanessa, I think the development plan is a cover for something else entirely." The revelation that Eleanor had independently uncovered threads of the same conspiracy complicated matters significantly. Cooper had been clear that civilian involvement should be minimized, yet here was Eleanor, already in potential danger because of her own investigation. "Have you told anyone else about this?" Vanessa asked carefully. "Just Victor and Maria. We were planning to take it to the state police, but—" Eleanor hesitated. "Then I noticed all the activity around your shop, the supposed structural repairs that look nothing like construction work, and I started wondering if you might already be involved somehow." Vanessa weighed her options quickly. Lying to Eleanor might endanger her further, but revealing classified information violated her agreements with Cooper's agency. "Eleanor, I can't explain everything right now, but you're right to be concerned," she finally said. "The situation is being handled by appropriate authorities. The most important thing is that you and your nephew stay safe and don't confront Mercer or his associates directly." The older woman studied her with shrewd eyes. "You're already working with someone, aren't you? That's why those people have been coming and going from your back entrance." Before Vanessa could formulate a response that wouldn't violate security protocols, Cooper knocked and entered, having clearly monitored the conversation. "Ms. Fitzgerald," he said, revealing his government credentials. "I'm Agent Cooper. I need to ask you some detailed questions about what your nephew has observed." The next hour involved careful debriefing, with Eleanor providing valuable information that actually strengthened the case against Mercer's operation. Her nephew had documented specific shipments with photographic evidence that could help establish patterns beyond what the monitoring station had recorded. "You've potentially placed yourself in danger by investigating this matter," Cooper told Eleanor gravely. We'll need to establish protection for both you and your nephew until the operation concludes. Eleanor straightened her shoulders, her expression resolute. I've lived in Pinewood Harbor my entire life, Agent Cooper. I'm not running away because some developer with dirty business thinks he can intimidate us. Her words echoed Vanessa's own determination, and the two women exchanged a look of mutual respect that would have been unimaginable just weeks earlier. Besides, Eleanor added with unexpected humor, who's going to supply parts to the honest mechanics if I close up shop? Vanessa here has customers waiting. Cooper recognized the same stubborn resilience he'd encountered with Vanessa and modified the protection plan accordingly. The community's business owners were clearly cut from stronger cloth than he'd initially assessed. By the following afternoon, preparations for the meeting with Mercer were complete. Vanessa would wear a concealed recording device, agents would be positioned throughout the restaurant, and a tactical team would stand ready to intervene at the first sign of danger. As Vanessa prepared for the encounter that could either secure her future or destroy it entirely, she received a video call from Zoe, safe in a government facility outside town. "Mom, are you sure about this?" her daughter asked, concern evident in her eyes. "Agent Wilson says it's really dangerous." "I'm sure about what matters," Vanessa replied softly. "Building our life here, standing up for what's right, showing you that we don't back down from challenges, even scary ones." Zoe's expression shifted from worry to pride. "Dad always said you were the strongest person he ever knew. I didn't really understand what he meant until now." The reference to her ex-husband, who had walked away from their family when the responsibilities became too demanding, surprised Vanessa. "Your father said that?" In one of his rare lucid moments between rehab attempts, Zoe confirmed with the matter-of-fact acceptance she'd developed about her absent parent. "He said he left because he couldn't handle the pressure of living up to your example, said you made hard things look easy, and it made him feel small." The revelation struck Vanessa deeply. She had never considered her perseverance as intimidating. It had simply been necessary, the only way forward through life's challenges. "I don't make hard things look easy, Zoe. I just do them anyway because the alternative is giving up." "That's what makes you strong, Mom." Zoe's smile carried wisdom beyond her years. "Now go catch some bad guys so we can get back to fixing cars and annoying the locals with our fancy digital systems." The conversation centered Vanessa, reminding her why she was taking this risk. Not just for justice or to protect her business, but to demonstrate for Zoe that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. That evening, dressed in business attire that felt foreign after weeks in shop clothes, Vanessa arrived at Harbor House, an upscale restaurant overlooking the water. Mercer waited at a corner table, accompanied by two men in expensive suits whose cold eyes and alert postures suggested backgrounds in something other than real estate development. "Ms. Reeves," Mercer greeted her with his practiced smile, "so pleased you've reconsidered our offer. Allow me to introduce Michael Brennan and James Kovacs, key investors in our Harbor Village vision." Vanessa shook their hands, noting the calculating assessment in their eyes. These were not ordinary businessmen. They carried the subtle tension of predators assessing potential threats. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Before discussing specific terms, I wanted to understand more about your development plans and timeline. My decision impacts not just my business, but my daughter's future." Brennan, the older of the two men, leaned forward. "Our vision for Pinewood Harbor is transformative. The industrial zone has outlived its usefulness in today's economy. We're offering property owners the opportunity to benefit from inevitable change rather than resist it." "And if they continue to resist?" Vanessa asked directly. Market forces and regulatory evolution will eventually force their hand, Kovac replied smoothly. Those who partner with us early receive premium compensation. Those who delay find their properties devalued by surrounding development and increasing compliance costs. The veiled threat was delivered with corporate politeness, but its meaning was unmistakable. I understand you have particular interest in my property, Vanessa pressed, guiding the conversation toward the evidence Cooper needed. Is there something specific about its location that's valuable to your plans? The three men exchanged quick glances before Mercer responded. Your corner lot provides optimal access for the marina facilities we envision. The harbor depth at that point allows for larger vessels. Commercial vessels? Vanessa asked innocently. I noticed Meridian Shipping seems to use that section of the harbor frequently. The temperature of the conversation dropped perceptibly. Brennan's expression hardened, while Kovac's hand moved slightly toward his jacket in a gesture that raised alarm bells in Vanessa's mind. You've been researching our business interests, Brennan observed, his tone dangerously neutral. Due diligence, Vanessa replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. When considering a major property transaction, it's important to understand who you're dealing with. And what exactly do you think you understand about our operations, Ms. Reeves? Kovac asked, his accent becoming more pronounced with tension. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. Vanessa knew Cooper and his team were listening, ready to intervene, but she needed to secure explicit evidence connecting these men to the trafficking network. I understand that Meridian Shipping handles special cargo that requires particular documentation and handling, she said carefully. Cargo that might attract unwanted attention without the right infrastructure in place. Brennan's eyes narrowed. You seem remarkably well informed for someone who only recently arrived in Pinewood Harbor. The building I purchased came with interesting features, Vanessa replied, deliberately ambiguous. Mr. Johnson apparently had connections I wasn't initially aware of. The underground monitoring station, Kovac stated flatly, abandoning pretense. We wondered if you had discovered it. The direct acknowledgement sent adrenaline coursing through Vanessa's system. They knew about the facility, had known all along, which meant Johnson's death and the suspiciously cheap sale of his property suddenly carried much darker implications. Then you understand why your offer would need to be significantly higher than market value, Vanessa countered, playing for time while Cooper's team processed this damning admission. What I've found has considerable value to the right parties. Brennan leaned forward, dropping all pretense of legitimate business. Ms. Reeves, let me be perfectly clear. You have two options. Accept our very generous offer and walk away with your life intact or suffer an unfortunate accident that would leave your daughter an orphan. The choice is remarkably simple. The explicit threat was exactly what the operation needed, clearly recorded for prosecution. Vanessa felt a surge of triumph beneath her fear. They had what they needed. Actually, she replied with newfound confidence, I think there's a third option you haven't considered. At her words, the restaurant erupted into coordinated action. Cooper and his team converged on the table from multiple directions, weapons drawn, while uniformed FBI agents secured the exits. Brennan and Kovac reached for concealed weapons, but froze when confronted with overwhelming force. Federal agents, hands on the table now, Cooper commanded. The look of shocked betrayal on Mercer's face as he was handcuffed provided Vanessa with a moment of pure satisfaction amidst the chaos. His carefully constructed facade of legitimate business crumbled as agents recited the charges: conspiracy, weapons trafficking, extortion, and suspected involvement in Johnson's supposedly natural death. As the suspects were led away, Cooper approached Vanessa, his professional demeanor softened by genuine respect. "You did well," he acknowledged. "Your testimony and the evidence from the underground facility should put them away for decades." "But what happens now?" Vanessa asked, the adrenaline of the operation beginning to fade. "Now?" Cooper smiled slightly. "Now, you go back to fixing cars and building the business you fought so hard to protect. Our team will complete the facility decommissioning within days, and your life returns to normal, or whatever passes for normal, after an experience like this." The next morning, Vanessa stood in her shop, watching as Cooper's team removed the last of their equipment from the now permanently sealed underground chamber. Zoe had returned home, already redesigning their website to highlight the upcoming grand reopening celebration. The bell above the door chimed as Victor and Maria entered, followed by Eleanor, Raymond, and several other business owners from the Harbor District. "Heard the news about Mercer and his associates," Victor said without preamble. "Arrested for some kind of international smuggling operation. Guess that explains their aggressive development strategy." Vanessa offered a carefully edited version of events, honoring her confidentiality agreements while acknowledging the community's role in standing firm against the development pressure. "The important thing is that the rezoning proposal has been withdrawn," Eleanor added. "The industrial district stays industrial, at least for now." "Which means we all have businesses to run," Raymond concluded practically. "Speaking of which, we've been talking and we have a proposition for you, Vanessa." Maria stepped forward. "The Harbor District Business Association has been dormant for years, but with everything that's happened, we've decided to revive it. We'd like you to serve as its first president." The offer stunned Vanessa. Just weeks ago, these same people had barely masked their skepticism about her chances of survival in their community. Now they were asking her to lead them. "Why me?" she asked honestly. "I'm still the newcomer here." "Because you showed us something important," Victor explained. "Not just courage in standing up to Mercer's pressure, but vision in seeing possibilities where the rest of us saw only problems. The Harbor District needs that combination of determination and innovation if we're going to thrive." Eleanor nodded, in agreement. "Besides, anyone who can turn an $800 investment into a successful business while inadvertently helping break up an international weapons ring clearly has leadership qualities we could use." The room filled with laughter, breaking the tension and symbolizing the transformation that had occurred, not just in Vanessa's status within the community, but in the community itself. As they discussed plans for revitalizing the business district, through collaboration rather than competition, Vanessa caught Zoe watching from the office doorway, a proud smile illuminating her face. In that moment, all the risks, fears, and challenges of the past weeks crystallized into something profoundly worthwhile. She had come to Pinewood Harbor seeking only a fresh start and a chance to build something meaningful for herself and her daughter. What she'd found instead was not just a business opportunity, but a community that, once they moved past their initial skepticism, valued determination and integrity above all. The underground chamber with its Cold War secrets would remain sealed beneath her shop, a reminder that beneath the ordinary surface of daily life often lie extraordinary depths. But the real discovery had been much simpler and far more valuable. The discovery that the greatest strength comes not from facing challenges alone, but from building connections that transform individual struggle into collective resilience. As the impromptu meeting evolved into a celebration of new beginnings, Vanessa realized that her $800 investment had purchased far more than a failing auto shop. It had bought her a place to belong, a community to lead, and most importantly, the opportunity to show Zoe that with enough courage and determination, no obstacle, not even NATO secrets hidden beneath your feet, could prevent you from creating the life you envisioned. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.